Well, making the pivot was the easiest thing to do. It was living in the false reality of doing something against the grain. Actually led to me being down in the dumps. It led to depression, and that's the route to fatigue and eventually to burnout. And that's actually what happened. In all honesty, I'm a very honest, authentic person, so I don't mind sharing. That depression led to divorce and then eventual bankruptcy. And I lost absolutely everything. I'd made a lot of money over the years. I had the houses, the cars, the exotic lifestyle as an international stuntman. And I lost everything. I didn't have a penny in the bank.
Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk on life. Our guest will share his life story. We want you to success in life. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk on life. We're gonna talk on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are gonna witness.
Shout out to my sponsors, A Mind for All Seasons. Your brain is your greatest competitive edge, so why not optimize it? Just text OPTIMIZE to 72000, 72000 for instant access to 6 quick videos that help you think faster, remember more, and stay focused longer. A big thanks to Epic App, the 4-step storytelling system I use every day to connect and to convert. Try it free. Email me at stever1961@gmail.com. That's stevr1961@gmail.com, and I'll get you the free app. Doing Business with a Servant's Heart was just named top 6 in small business marketing. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. And we can say doing entertainment because I am super pumped because I'm a big movie lover and we're going to have an actual stuntman on the show. First time in 900 shows to have that. But, more importantly, he's got a servant's heart and he's just a great, great guy. I love this guy. But let's start with our gratitude as I'm doing this year. The gratitude today for you, the audience and guest and me. Every day is a fresh start. And I know you'll make the most of it. And speaking of fresh starts, my guest was a stuntman. Now he's out there coaching and helping people with their mind. Kind of a pivot that's crazy, but he's super successful. So let's bring our guest on. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. I've been looking forward to this, Steve. I really have.
Me too. We had a great talk when we first met. I was so excited to have you on. And he's an international guest. I love. Where are you living right now?
I live in a little place called Buxton in England in the UK.
Buxton, yes. That's okay. I remember that. And it was a small town, right?
Yeah, it's a little small spa town with rolling hills and babbling brooks. Very countryside. It's lovely.
Beautiful. You got probably half the audience wants to go over there right now after making that description. Stuntman. Never met one. I'm a big movie lover. I know they're a huge part of movies. What got you into that career?
Oh, I wanted to do that when I was a little boy. I've kept the letters actually that I got back from the TV station. So started writing away at the age of about 12. I've got one on my office wall when I was 14 framed that tells me exactly what I would need to do to become a stuntman. And at the time, it sort of, blew my mind because it said, oh, you'll have to become an actor when you grow up, Curtis. You'll have to be a professional actor. Oh, and a black belt in a martial art and an instructor in parachuting. And it was a long old list. So professional actor and instructor in 6 different disciplines. So I kind of, felt a bit low for a few days as a child because that wasn't me because I was a geeky kid. I was actually a bookworm, not very sporty, not a typical stuntman, bit of a thinker. In a bedroom looking down a microscope or out of a telescope into that kind of thing. Not your typical wannabe stuntman. Wasn't an athlete. But actually, I started immediately training and started doing half marathons. Did my first half marathon at 13, second one at 14, started boxing at 15 and so on. Jumped out my first aircraft at 16. So I was a very determined young man. And by 18, absolutely set a firm goal and adapted a bit of a special mindset. That was the first time I can really trace that, where I'd start to visualize and other things we might get into discussing. But at the age of 18, I set a goal I wanted to be a stuntman by 25. I wanted to break a Guinness World Record by 30. And ideally, somewhere in the middle, I would be in a James Bond movie. Those were my three targets that I wrote in my diary when I was 18 years old. And I'm very pleased to say all of those came true.
Yeah, and you were in a James Bond movie. You were in Game of Thrones, I believe, right? As
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
actor, a pretty high end actor. Two of my favorite. What James Bond movie were you in?
I
Some
was in
people don't.
the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies. It was the with Pierce Brosnan in the role of James Bond. That was
Yeah,
real great fun because not only did I early days appear there in a car chase firing a rocket launcher at him, my RPG goes through the car and explodes, kills the bad guys, my friends behind, and I have to leap out of the way. That was my first stunt on the show. But not only that, but later I actually got to do a fight with him on the ship. Door opens, I'm playing a guard, and he stabs me in the chest and leans out and he fires at the bad guy, and the fire is returned by the baddie who shoots me, and I fall off the ship. And the bad guy looks and he goes, "Oh, we've killed James Bond." And it shows me sinking down to the bottom of the South China Seas. And I was watching that at the cinema. I was 26 then, but in my heart, I was like that 12-year-old boy again, going, "Yes, this is great."
I'm doing it right now in my heart. I'm a fanboy right now because I love Bond movie and I love movies. I said earlier, you said something interesting, and audience, you could tell this guy's extremely successful. That's why I asked. He's very humble. Unless I asked, he probably wouldn't have mentioned about his career in movies. But you said something about being a stuntman, how it's really much different than the rock stuntman or stuntman we hear of, these bodybuilder, muscular, athletic type guys. Not that you're not, but tell us what your thoughts on that.
Well, the interesting part of that is that would come back to haunt me in later life. All right. Because this was something that I wanted to do. I used to watch a TV show back in the day, showing my age now, called The Fall Guy. This is early 80s. Lee Majors is playing the character of Colt Seavers, a Hollywood movie stuntman. And in my rainy old town in England, where I grew up, very industrial, very run down, the dream of being in Hollywood and being in the movies like he was like, massively alluring. So it was based on literally the premise of that. And although I wasn't sporty in terms of soccer or things like that, cricket, I was good. I had a sort of some guts, if you like. I had some gusto. I could come into my own if it was to climb the highest tree or to jump from the highest level rooftop. Or I was kind of daring as a kid. But it was really, truthfully, looking back, it was to try and find some way of belonging. Okay, as a child, 12. That's the time people patted me on the back and noticed me because I was quite shy and quite introvert. So that was the origins of it. Why this nerdy kid set his goal on becoming a stuntman. Now you jump forward 25 years, busy stunt career, film awards and that kind of thing. Got into the Hollywood Stuntman's Hall of Fame years later. Who'd have thought, right? For an Englishman, it's very rare. But I got to a point where the person I was approaching 40, I'm 55 now, the person I was approaching that kind of age was starting to have doubts. So I felt like a different person. And what it is the real me underneath all that bravado, the tough guy stuntman. Yes, I was a martial artist. I was a boxer. I could take a hit. Quite tough. I toughened myself up, but it was all armor that I'd been putting on for years. And by that age, I was being called in a different direction. I was really behind the scenes, like the nice guy who wanted to help people. And my natural talent was writing and teaching, not throwing myself off burning buildings and getting knocked over by cars, as fun as that was for the longest time. So that was the origin of me starting to change and reinvent myself, to go to something that seems completely different. What, you're a holistic life coach now and you used to be a stuntman? And there's some crossovers, but that's the reason, because I wasn't the typical sporty stunt guy. I was that little boy looking out for recognition among family and friends.
Was there an event or something happen or a mentor that helped you pivot? Because you're right, going stuntman to a holistic coaching and mindset coach, night and day, they couldn't be any different. Does anything happen of, like I said, to help you with that pivot and make the pivot?
Well, making the pivot was the easiest thing to do. It was living in the false reality of doing something against the grain. Actually led to me being down in the dumps. It led to depression. And that's the route to fatigue and eventually to burnout. And that's actually what happened. In all honesty, I'm a very honest, authentic person, so I don't mind sharing. That depression led to divorce and then eventual bankruptcy. And I lost absolutely everything. I'd made a lot of money over the years. I had the houses, the cars, the exotic lifestyle as an international stuntman. And I lost everything. I didn't have a penny in the bank. I was single, thinking, well, that's that then. I'm okay. It was an unhappy marriage in the end, so I'll just be that single guy. But, I'm just inherently built to apply the knowledge that I've attained. It's surprising how much wisdom we pick up over the years. So it wasn't long before I thought, you know what, I'm helping so many people. It's time to walk the walk and take my own medicine. And so I applied my own teachings and my own mindset and heart set hacks, for want of a better expression, and rebuilt them. Within a year, I'd met my soulmate and married her. We're very happily married now, all loved up. Every day's a joy. Made the money back, made over 1 million since. And I'm in a much better place because I'm doing something that's aligned. And for so long, I wasn't. I was being pulled in that direction. I wrote a book, started doing motivational speaking away from the film set. And when I did those things, my heart sang. And I felt sometimes on a stage talking like to students, say, I felt almost moved. It felt so the right thing to do, like something was flowing through me, this truth that I was where I should be. And it felt great. And then I'd go off and do some work on a movie set, doing something violent or dark or, killings, destruction. It just wasn't me anymore. It was harder and harder to do that. So to answer your question, when I eventually let go and got in alignment, it was actually easy because that's my true calling is to teach and help people.
So get in alignment. I think what I'm hearing from you, self-awareness, that this stuntman thing, this exotic life, and then of course the events of losing everything, the divorce, all that made you more self-aware. So that's kind of the lesson the audience you're gonna get here. It's just being aware. Is it really, are you passionate? And is your purpose what you're doing? You did the stuntman probably to make money and you got a family to support and all that, but it wasn't really getting you up in the morning, even though you. And then what's amazing to me, Curtis, when I first met you, I fell in love with you, is that you had everything, but you really didn't because you didn't have your heart.
Exactly that. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And what you said there, Steve, about wanting to leap out of bed on a morning, everyone on the planet has an off day. The stars aren't aligned. There's the odd day we stub our toe, get out of bed, and it starts off in the wrong way, and we can correct that, with knowledge and fix that. But for the most part, when you live an aligned life, as you look forward to what's going on. I'm sure you look forward to the different guests. You're looking forward to editing this and writing that and networking and helping people and connecting people. In the same way, I look at what's going ahead in the day. I've got a podcast there. I'm going to write some material there. Oh, great. I've got them 2 clients and they're about to make that breakthrough. This is good. This is week 3 with me. I know what's coming. They're going to love this and I'll have a nice session. And then you're getting feedback on somebody who's in week 6 with me and a tear full. Thank you very much from the heart. They've made their big change. This is great. And it's just so satisfying. So that's what was missing. There was dread of like, gosh, I've got to do that. And it was the money. In the end, I'd find myself having that conversation on a film set, dressed in armor, been sat there for 12 hours. They're still not going to use us in long, long, boring days. It's not glamorous at all. And thinking, why am I doing this? I'm halfway through writing that article for that magazine. That's what I want to be doing that. We stuck here. And then why am I here? Because I've got a mortgage to pay, or I've convinced myself I've got mouths to feed, which is something I hear a lot for people. I'm not really aligned, but what am I going to do? I've got mouths to feed, rent to pay, and it's like, no, I get you. I have been there, but there is a way, and it's never ever too late to pivot to something that's more aligned with your heart, so that you can live on purpose.
I'm glad you mentioned that because people don't want to serve or give their stuff. We're going to talk about your compass. We're going to share with the audience that you give away for free because they say the same thing. I got mouths to feed. I got bills to pay. I got power bill. I got this. But you said it, me and you, Curse, we have the same thing, but we're out there serving people every day as much as we can. And I love that you said that. And I love that you went to the top, to the bottom, and you're back to the top again. So what's one word you'd give the audience that they know somebody that's at the bottom or somebody's listening is at the bottom? What's 1 or 2 words you tell them right now?
it's never too late to change. And that comes from a place of being at rock bottom, metaphorically staring down the barrel of a gun as low as you can possibly get compared to now, happy in love, money flowing through to and through me and in a good place. And I'm not unique. I've helped so many people do the same thing. I'm sure you have. It is possible to pick yourself up from the bottom, and the only way is up. So the sooner you start, the better it is, right?
That's a great phrase. I love it. Really, there's only way to go up. You're at the bottom, can't go any
Mm-hmm.
farther. The next step is you're going to take that next step up or stay where you're
Mm-hmm.
at. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So interesting in your background, I learned that before the show is you do hypnosis with your mindset coaching. What's the idea with that? Do you do that with all your clients, or is it a particular client that needs a little different help?
Broadly speaking, yes. I use various. I arrive at the scene with a little toolbox with different modalities in there, and I'm not hard pressed to use them all. I'm not in a rush to get them all out and look at me. I can do all these things. They're just there when the time's right. So they're tools. But in terms of hypnosis or a version of like a mild hypnosis, then yeah. I mean, I go from everything from just getting somebody into a natural hypnotic state to drop little suggestions into their subconscious. So oftentimes they're not even aware really that I'm helping him in that way, just the way I phrase things, and do little hypnotic commands to help them and to just start flicking switches to turn inherent negative statements that they're saying to flip them around because they can be said in a positive way, which turns everything around completely. So from as mild as that, right up to full-blown hypnosis to go in and work on limiting beliefs. And that's not only in their mindset, but also in their heart set to release things, old stories they're hanging on to. We're all good at having these little stories that play and they kind of identify us. That's part of our background. And oftentimes I'm there to say, not really. You don't need that. You did at the time, but gosh, that was 7 years ago. Maybe it's time just to leave that behind. And then they feel it's like rocks out of a backpack. Oh,
Yeah,
I feel a bit lighter, when they have
I
a spring
love
to
it.
the step. So
Yeah.
yeah, hypnosis, NLP. I do a thing called emotional freedom technique. Just different tips and tricks to help them, little tools to make their transition from where they are to where they want to be that little bit easier.
And hypnosis, there's that myth of, because I had that myth before I met my first hypnosis on my show, is they go to a show, a comedy show, or see a hypnosis on stage. This is different than that, right?
Yeah, it's completely different. This is more along the lines of when you're daydreaming on the way home in a car on a regular route, you're thinking of things, you're doing this, and before you know it, you've got home, but you have no real recollection of that 20-minute journey you just made. You've been on autopilot. That's a form of like hypnosis. You're autopilot driving that car whilst you're thinking of something else, and that's a form of this. So it's a very mild talking to somebody. And, technically, if somebody talks really fast and erratic, then I would talk fast and erratic. I would match them to start with. And then just gradually, as I start to slow down and put gaps in, when they're replying, they would slow down and put gaps in. And you're just bringing someone to a state, matching their breathing and talking, mirroring them to just bring them into a kind of aligned state with you so that then the bit of their brain, the subconscious, is listening, even if they're not consciously aware of it. And so you're communicating with their subconscious. That's a form of hypnosis.
You made my day because I thought I was the only guy that drove for 20 minutes and didn't realize he went from A to B. I feel good. Everybody does that. And I'm kidding, audience, because I know we all do. Because it happens and it's funny. You don't realize it till later. It's like, where did I just go? And you're right. That's the state that you take it in. It's fantastic. Let's talk about this incredible book. What's the title of the book and what's the mission of the book? What are people going to learn?
So the book is called The Fearless Path, and it's a journey up a mystical mountain. It's a recollection, and I've been up many mountains and done lots of climbing to many summits. So it's fictional in that I've taken lots of stories from a greater time span and pushed it together so that it's an allegorical tale to teach 7 key lessons over 7 days. So you get this book, you read a chapter a day, relatively short chapters, very, very manageable, little thing to think of at the end, little task to do. And you just come with me on this 7 day journey up a mountain. And every day climbing this mountain, we end at a little monastery on the climb. where there's a moment of reflection. And I'll go back into my own life, true stories, autobiographical about my stunt days, going way back. I've been a magician, an illusionist on the stage, making ladies float, and Houdini-esque kind of escapes is touched upon, getting into movies like James Bond, and early days of parachuting and leaping out of hot air balloons at 30,000 feet to break world records, you know. So there's lots of sort of true stories woven in there as part of the reflection, which proves that what I'm teaching, if I'm teaching a thing about visualization in, say, chapter 3, then it's like, well, this worked because in order to achieve this, I surrounded myself in imagery of these world records, hot air balloon skydivers. And that was in my peripheral vision as I worked. Like Mission Control, my bedroom at the time was covered in all these posters. And I had my daily visualizations of leaping out the balloon. So I explained step by step why the thing I'm talking about is 100% real and not kind of some drifting off on a fantasy. It's not woohoo. It's based in practical modern science, brain science, and quantum physics is catching up as well. You know, so these are real things, real skills that can take you up to the next level that you should be living rather than settle for anything less.
Yeah, that's great. Fearless, love that word, but many definitions of it. Many people talk it in different ways. What's your definition of fearless?
Well, fearless is the opposite to fear. So fearless is you have your, in my case, I found a method to navigate fear. Now, that doesn't mean I'm gung-ho, because I'm actually the exact opposite to a daredevil. As a stuntman, I was meticulous and I would rehearse and iron out every possible cause of injury. And if there was just one little thing, oh, you know, I might bang an elbow, then I'll put a big elbow pad on, body armor. I don't want to get hurt because I might have to do a second take or a third take. And as I got into stunt directing, stunt coordinating, I didn't want my team to get hurt. You know, I care for everybody and we meticulously rehearse. And if I could put a crash mat in there off camera, I'd put one in and just look after everybody. So the fear element, like you say, there's many different types, from the obvious old-fashioned fear, you know, the reptilian brain, back of the brain, that fight or flight, you know, where you get frightened. But that's designed to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. It's been with us for tens of thousands, if not longer, you know, years. And so you can deal with that quite quickly. That's a nervous system thing. It's a gut reaction, things like certain breathing techniques, because that does kick in before a stunt. There's a kind of a build up and everyone starts to go quiet. Okay, let's settle down now. We're getting very close. Then your heart starts to, you know, you stood on top of a building, the airbag's inflated. It's just human nature, but you can breathe through that. Like, you know, there's a breathing technique I can share now very, very quickly. Breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. You hold that for 7 seconds, and then a slow exhale through the mouth for 8 seconds, just slightly longer than you've held it for. You do the couple of rounds of that, and suddenly your heart's fine. The, you know, levels, the adrenaline has sorted itself out, and you're just in this kind of zen place, ready to totally focus to step off that building when they shout action, you know. So that's that fear. That's that primal kind of fear dealt with. But what about, you know, the fear of missing out, the fear of what will the neighbors say, the fear of, you know, will people judge me? There's all these little nuances, and that's where the mindset comes in and the heart set. So it's the stuff I help my clients with, but I lived it first. So there's the perception of, gosh, this guy's fearless, but I know fear is all in the mind and the heart, and that there's little quirky ways of bypassing that.
So well said. And we're coming to the end. I'm going to ask you a question because it's my show and I can ask this question. What is the worst injury you had as a stuntman?
I probably broke a nail once. I've never
Really?
broken a bone in my long wrist-filled career. I'm very proud to say, never broken a bone. So
What do you attribute that to? Just the visualization, the practice, the study?
yeah, it's the mindset. It's the visualization, the mental rehearsal, and then the physical rehearsal equals never breaking a bone in my life.
Well, we're going to get his contact information here in a second, audience. That is a perfect reason to reach out to this young man, because to me, he's young. He doesn't look 55. He looks 45. I guess that is younger. But that's huge because you said it's a riskful job, like a firefighter's riskful, police, military, but using the mindset, like you said. How many years were you a stuntman?
30.
30 years. No, your hangnail is your worst. Okay, audience, that's a proof in the pudding right there, as my dad used to say. Let's end with a fun question. So I'm going to come out to England and come to your town, and I'm going to reserve a table at your favorite restaurant. I want you to invite 3 people that I can meet that have been influential, have made a difference in your life, whether dead or alive. But more importantly, because I've never been to England, what food would you order for the table that I'd be eating?
Oh gosh. Wow. Well,
Talk about
I take it
mindset, right?
yeah. The table would be easy because I've got a favorite restaurant. I don't eat meat anymore. I used to, but I'm meat free these days. Part of my health kick and keep my weight under control and other areas. So, but I would prove to you that that doesn't mean you've got to suffer for taste or so. There's a little place. It's a Nepalese restaurant, 20 minutes from where I live. And if you've never tried Nepalese food, it's absolutely fantastic. And so, yeah, I would take you to this Nepalese restaurant and we'd eat there. The 3 people, gosh. First person that came to mind was Bob Proctor because we spoke just before we started this podcast. Very influential in my life, author, teacher. Um, living or, gosh, I can have anybody.
I know for you, you've met a lot of people, so it's going to be tough.
Exactly. Gosh, on the spot. Well, I'm thinking of people that I've met, but then if I can meet anybody, I could sit Jesus at the table, and that would be a fascinating conversation
Oh
if you
my
would
gosh,
join us in that kind of
and
company.
Nepalese food, and you got Jesus.
I'd love
Holy moly!
that. And you'd already be there. So is the
Yep.
third person a third person
Another
as well as
person,
you?
yeah.
Wow. Hmm. There's an author called Wallace Wattles. There's so many, it's difficult to choose. But I'm just trying to go out there of like somebody that I could never meet. What I found in my life is that I often meet people, you'd be surprised. People I admire, people whose books I've read, people I've seen in movies. I do get to meet them. And
Jeez.
yeah, I live a blessed life
Awesome.
like that. I really do. But it's kind of spooky sometimes just how these people come into my life. So very, very, A-list actors, best-selling authors, podcast hosts, everybody that you can imagine. So Wallace Waltz was an author that goes way back to the New Thought movement, and that you talked about. I think he published The Science of Getting Rich in about 1902, and that's the very beginnings of all of those people that went forward after that to set up what is now personal development. He was the genesis of all of that. So I'd love to find out. It's a very thin book, The Science of Getting Rich, but just that would be a fascinating conversation.
I'd be excited to meet all 3 of those, especially Wallace Wattles, because I did read the science. What's the book again? I always
The
forget.
Science of Getting Rich, but it's
Getting
not
Rich.
about money, as you know. It's rich in its truest sense. Of money is just a tiny part. It's that wealth that you and I live now, of the abundance of being in a position where money flows to and through us, and we can pay that forward to help and make a difference in the world. But also, the wealth of a beautiful relationship, of loving relationship with friends and family, and career and our spirituality, just overflowing in all those different departments.
Get that book, audience. Wallace Wattles. Just look him up. It's a short read, so if you're a short attention span, it's perfect. Curtis, we're going to bring you back for part 2. We got to do a sequel. Let's use the movie verbiage here, because this is, I knew you before when I met, but I've learned so much, and you can offer so much to people. I know listening, the audience wants to reach out to you. How can they find you?
Across all social media, I can be found at curtisrivers.com. And if any of this resonated, listening to this podcast, I do have a freebie called the Alignment Compass. It's a little tool, it's free of charge. So www.thealignmentcompass.com.
And audience, I believe in, sorry to interrupt. I believe in you so much, Curtis. Audience, this is how much I believe in him. The first 3 people that go to his website, and you probably have a contact for him, mention when you reach out to him or when you talk to him, this podcast or my name, either one, and I always send you his book for free. and you can have access to Fearless. How cool is that? And I want to do that because when I first met Curtis, he had that servant's heart. It was evident right away. And we just need to keep, as you said, pay it forward to everybody. So make sure you mention the podcast or me, and Curtis will reach out to me or give you my contact information. I'll get you a book. I just sent one out this week, and the person was super excited. So that's what we should be doing in this world. And thanks again, Curtis. And here's the other thing for you, call to action. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It doesn't have to be mine. But anything that you're listening to or watching, here's a perfect example. You're listening to this podcast, and God, my friend Tony, he really needs a mindset change. He's just struggling. Send him the podcast. Let Curtis introduce himself to this gentleman or this woman to this podcast. And guess what? I've had people do it and made huge impacts in people's lives. That's powerful. That's a gift. So let's do that. And with that being said, me and Curtis want to thank everybody for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.